How to think beyond pain, the hidden path to healing they never taught you. Let me share with you a conversation I once came across, one that stayed with me for a long time. It's the kind of conversation that doesn't just pass through your ears, but sits with your soul, especially when life feels heavy. This exchange happened between two people, Daniel, a curious seeker, and Ava, a wise woman known for her deep understanding of the mind and the unseen forces that shape our lives. Daniel asked her something raw, something honest, something many of us have felt but never said out loud. He looked at her and said, "Ava, I've heard you say that to feel better, to heal ourselves, we need to stop obsessing over the problem and instead shift our focus toward what we want, toward wellness, peace, or clarity. But how? If someone is in real pain, physical or emotional, how can they not feel it? How can they possibly look away from it long enough to think about anything else, let alone something positive?" And you know what? That question, it's real. It's not just a theoretical curiosity. It's the kind of question that someone asks when they're lying in bed with a body that's hurting, or walking around with a heart that feels broken into pieces. It's not academic, it's survival. Ava paused. She didn't rush her answer. And then she began softly but clearly. "You're right. It is very difficult not to think about the pain, especially when it's loud and demanding your attention, whether it's your body aching, your mind spiraling, or your emotions weighing you down. It takes over everything. But here's what most people don't realize. The reason pain gets so loud is because most people have never trained their minds to focus deliberately when things were calm." She continued, "You see, most people live their lives on autopilot. They drift from one moment to the next, reacting to whatever shows up, without much thought about what they're really thinking. It's only when something goes wrong that they suddenly wake up and say, 'Wait, I don't want this.' That's when they start trying to think positively. But by then, the momentum of the negative thinking is already strong." It made sense. Most of us don't start consciously choosing our thoughts until life forces us to, until we're in discomfort, until we're hurting. And then it feels almost impossible to think about anything else. Ava nodded, as if reading that very thought. "That's the challenge," she said. "Once you're in pain, whether it's physical illness, heartbreak, grief, anxiety, or confusion, your thoughts start circling around it like moths to a flame. You give it your attention, your energy, your emotion, and by doing that, you unknowingly feed it, because what you focus on grows." Now that part hit me hard, because it's true. The more we analyze the pain, fear it, fight it, or resent it, the deeper its roots grow. But Ava wasn't suggesting denial or pretending the pain wasn't real. Not at all. She said something else, something subtle but powerful. "I'm not telling you to ignore what's happening in your body or your life. I'm saying that you can learn to separate what's happening from your emotional response to it. You can be in pain and still choose to feel hopeful. You can be uncomfortable and still focus on something better. The pain doesn't have to decide what kind of thoughts you think." I sat with that idea. It wasn't easy to digest at first, because when you're in the middle of something that hurts, the last thing you feel you have is choice. But Ava believed otherwise. "Even during pain," she said, "there are moments, tiny windows, where it's less intense. It may be just a few seconds, but in those seconds, you can practice reaching for a better feeling thought. Maybe it's remembering someone you love. Maybe it's thinking about something you're grateful for. Maybe it's simply appreciating that you made it through the night. Those better feeling thoughts," she said, "they create a shift. And if you follow them slowly but surely, your emotional state starts to rise. That's the path to healing, not through fighting the pain, but through finding relief, bit by bit." I asked her, "So what happens if someone has been focused negatively for a long time? If they've lived with stress or fear for years, and it's finally caught up with them as illness or deep emotional pain, can they still turn it around? She looked at me kindly and said, "Yes, but it's not instant, and that's important to understand. If you've practiced negative thinking for years, judgment, worry, self-criticism, then yes, it may have created illness or suffering. And now, to heal, you must begin to reverse that momentum. That means choosing better thoughts every day. Not perfect ones, just better ones, little by little. That's the climb back to wellness." She paused, then said something I'll never forget. "Preventing suffering is easier than curing it. But both are possible, every single time. No exceptions." Her voice grew softer. "Even when you're hurting, there will be moments that feel a little lighter. Look for them, choose them, hold on to them. They're not random, they're the way out. And if you keep choosing relief, just the smallest bit, your body and life will follow that direction." That conversation changed the way I look at healing. It taught me that the mind doesn't just observe pain, it participates in it. And if it can participate in pain, it can also participate in healing. So, if you're hurting right now, if your body aches, if your heart feels heavy, if your spirit feels stuck, let me leave you with Ava's wisdom. You may not be able to silence the pain right now, but you can speak more loudly with your hope. Your focus is your power. And healing begins not when the pain is gone, but when your attention starts to lean towards something better. One small thought at a time, one moment of relief at a time. That's how we heal.